For the second time in the first three games of the season, I am doing my Insomniac Lunatic Fringe Giants postgame show more than 24 hours after the game ended because I worked a lot this weekend. I had to take a late night train back to Sacramento after Saturday's game, and I ended up sleeping all day, what was now yesterday, because it is early in the morning on Monday, March the 30th. But we were talking about the game on Saturday, March the 28th. This is your Insomniac Lunatic Fringe Giants postgame show. The Yankees swept the Giants over the weekend in San Francisco. The Giants scored only one run of the entire opening three-game series, easily the worst opening series in Giants franchise history. They had only had 4 hits combined in the first two games. They were shut out in each of their first two games for the first time in franchise history, and they became the first team in Major League history to have less than 5 hits and not a single run through their first two games of the season. On Saturday, they finally scored a run, and they actually out-hit the Yankees 9-7. But, well, the offense is really pressing right now. They wasted 3 massive opportunities, and the Yankees end up winning by a final of 3-1. So prior to the game, my friend and part-time producer of the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe, Vinny Shestoni, asked for my thoughts on what Saturday's game might look like, and I decided I would give them. And here's what they were prior to the game. Now, let's first, because I don't have an actual live producer here.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're here with our reporter for today, Steven Ritterman. I'm having some coffee with him. So, Steven, what are your thoughts on the Giants so far on the first two games, and what do you hope to see from today's game?
Well, the first two games, brutal, embarrassing. And my expectations for today aren't high. Unfortunately, what's going on right now is Tony Vitello is having some growing pains, which I'm not surprised is happening. And you have an offense that's out of whack, and you're playing 4 really good teams. That's just what's happening. The first two games have not changed my overall outlook of the season. I'm expecting another 500-ish season, but I don't want to say expect, but I'm prepared for them to get swept today. I'm hoping Tyler Mahle, who had a great spring, didn't give up a single earned run, can have a solid start today. I want to say actually one thing, bullpen. Tony has given every bullpener on the opening day roster an appearance over the first two games, and 7 2/3 combined inning by the bullpen. They've given up, I think, just like to say 4 hits. They've walked 5, they've struck out 9, and have only given up 1 run.
There you have it. Some impromptu thoughts from Sports Radio Services Steven Ritterman. You can.
By the way, this is water, not coffee.
Oh, bummer. You can read his story later today.
So those were my thoughts, and I was prepared for the sweep. And it was another beautiful day for baseball. It was a partly cloudy day at Oracle Park. It was Tyler Mahle, as I had mentioned in my video, against Will Warren. Mahle survived a 2-out triple by Cody Bellinger in the top of the first. So in the bottom of the first, they came up against Warren. Warren set down the first 2 men he faced. But Luis Arias, who is now in the third hole, he got a base hit with 2 outs. That brought up Rafael Devers, who made a nice 2-strike adjustment and fisted a base hit the other way to left field. So the Giants had runners at first and second for Elliot Ramos, who had a great at-bat. And during his great at-bat, Arias, this is the kind of baseball IQ stuff the nerds don't keep track of. He caught Yankees third baseman Ryan McMahon napping. He wasn't even covering third, so Warren is preparing to pitch, and before he can even get the pitch off, Arias steals third. So really just heads up high IQ baseball play like right there by Luis Arias. Elliot Ramos ends up fouling off 4 2-strike pitches to work the count full to 3-2. The Giants and the dugout are getting into it. The crowd's getting into it. 3 straight sellout crowds, by the way, at Oracle Park to open the season. Also want to point that out. But Elliot Ramos is a lot like Reggie Sanders in that he likes to go for that high fastball. Warren went up the ladder on him, and he indeed got him to swing at the high fastball, and that would end the inning. So just like the bottom of the first inning on the opener Wednesday, the Giants wasted a valuable opportunity in the bottom of the first inning in the series finale on Saturday. That brought the Yankees up in the second inning, and we saw the Yankees respond to the wasted opportunity by the Giants in the opener with a 5-run top of the second inning. Thankfully, that did not happen, but the Yankees would score a pair of runs in the top of the third. It was Ben Rice who hit a 2-out double to knock in a pair of runs for the Yankees and give them a 2-0 lead. It was almost 3-0 when Giancarlo Stanton lined a base hit to left field, but Elliot Ramos made a great throw to the plate to nail Rice at the plate to end the inning. Now, I want to touch on something. We were mentioning Arias a minute ago. Prior to Rice's double, Cody Bellinger had gotten on with a base hit that was just out of the range of the diving Luis Arias. Now, of course, Arias' defense isn't great. That's the risk the Giants took in signing him. Should he have gotten to that ball? I don't know. I know a lot of I've read Sam Lubman said it perfectly. A lot of Giants fans are going to overreact. Or was it Sam? Or someone said, I think it was Sam, though I could be wrong, said that a lot of Giants fans are going to overreact to his defensive miscues. And look, actually, his defense has really improved. His work with Ron Washington has truly paid off. I don't know if he should have had that ball or not, but I know a lot of fans are going to overreact to that. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not blaming Arias for that. But Ramos cutting Rice down at the plate to end the top of the third seemed to swing the momentum in the Giants' favor. Jung-Hoo Lee led off the inning with a double down the right field line. His first hit of the season, he had really been struggling. He had come into the game 0 for 7, was 0 for 8 after being retired in the bottom of the first. Matt Chapman singles over the mound and into left center field. And finally, at long last, the Giants would have their first run of the season. Unfortunately, it'd be all they would get in the inning and in the game. Tyler Mahle would go 4 innings. And look, I get it. He has had a history of injuries over the last couple years. He had thrown 80 pitches. Tony Vitello, in his first start of the year, he had only gone 10 innings during spring training. He had thrown 80 pitches. I understand Tony Vitello wanting to take him out a little early. I get that. The one thing I've noticed about Tony, I think there's a reason the Giants gave him the number 23. He loves making pitching changes. Just like the last Giants manager who wore the number 23, the great Felipe Alou. And Felipe was a solid manager. His pitching changes drove me insane, but he was not the worst manager. He actually did a really good job. I would actually say a great job in 2003, his first year when the Giants went wire to wire and won the National League West, winning 100 games. That was a fun season. Still hurts that the Giants lost to the Marlins in the NLDS that year. So we go to the top of the 5th. And Ryan Baruchi, we had seen him in Friday's game, comes in. Aaron Judge, he hits a home run to get the Yankees run back. That makes it 3-1. The Giants would have another opportunity in the bottom of the 6th inning. But Harrison Bader would ground into an inning-ending double play. They would have one more opportunity in the bottom of the 9th against David Bednar. Elliot Ramos used the ABS to his advantage and drew a leadoff walk. Willie Adames who, like Jung-Hoo Lee, came in 0 for the season. He gets a base hit to left field. Harrison Bader coming up. Now, some people wanted Bader to bunt. I can understand that. But with Patrick Bailey on deck, I didn't have any faith Bailey was going to come through. So Tony let Bader swing away. Unfortunately, Bader struck out swinging, and then Patrick Bailey predictably hit into a game-ending 4-6-3 double play. That was a tough loss. And it is 3 games. There are still 159 of these babies to go. So I'm not going to freak out. But it is worrisome. I'm not going to lie. They're off to probably their worst 3-game start in franchise history. And they're not hitting. So I mentioned Adames. He had gone 1 for his first 10, or 0 for his first 10. Finally got his first hit in what was his 11th at bat. Jung-Hoo Lee took him till his 8th at bat to get his first hit. Casey Schmidt and Patrick Bailey are still hitless. Harrison Bader is hitting 100. Matt Chapman, he finally had his first hit of the season yesterday or on Saturday, going 1 for 4. He's hitting 111. The bullpen, which is the team's biggest Achilles heel, is actually doing well. We saw Baruki, we saw Matt Gage, Keaton Wynn, Eric Miller, JT Brubaker, and Ryan Walker in relief on Saturday. And in 5 innings, they gave up just 1 run on 2 hits. They walked 2 and struck out 4. The bullpen's off to a solid start. Maybe the Tyler Malleys, maybe the Adrian Hausers, maybe they'll defy expectations. We'll see. But with how weak the Giants pitching is, we cannot afford to have this team go through an extended offensive slump. I did say after the postgame on Friday, and I pretty much expected this coming into this series, even before the first pitch was thrown on Wednesday, that with the tough schedule, that the Giants would quite possibly get off to a rough start. With the tough schedule, Tony's obvious growing pains, and the offense completely out of whack, these first 2 weeks are not going to be pretty. And everyone wants to blame Tony Vitello. There are a lot of naysayers out there that want to blame him. I mean, this is quite the jump going from being a college head coach to a big league manager. That has never happened before. We've been over this. But it's not like he's managing horribly. I don't like that he's making a lot of pitching changes, but strategically, I think he's doing okay. I would have pinch hit for Patrick Bailey, though. And it's really why, that situation was really where we could have used Luis Matos on the roster. The Giants wanted to take Gerard Encarnacion over Luis Matos. Matos would have been the perfect guy to pinch hit for Bailey there. I had no faith in Bailey. And I think Tony made the right move having Harrison Bader swing away. I do. But he should have pinch hit for Patrick Bailey. That could have made a tremendous difference. But I'm not going to sit here and blame Tony Vitello. But what I am going to say is the offense has got to get it going. The big difference between this team and the mediocre teams of the last 4 years is each of the last 4 years, the Giants had at the very least solid pitching. They had a really good bullpen in 2022, in 2024, and last year. They had a really good rotation in 2022 and last year. 2023, bullpen was still solid. Rotation was still all right. 24 rotation was all right. But both the rotation and the bullpen and just the Giants pitching in general this year is very weak. And I think this team is going to get off to a rough start. I think they very well may be 3-10 after the April 8th getaway game against the Phillies. But with how lacking the pitching is, if this team cannot get it together offensively, now let me make it clear, I doubt it's going to happen, but it is certainly a possibility. If they can't get it together offensively, I do fear a 90-95 loss season. And this isn't Tony Vitello being in over his head. He has some growing pains. He needs to learn how to manage a bullpen. He needs to learn how to settle down his intensity. I know I'm the pot calling the kettle black here. He's got to adjust to life in the big leagues. but none of what happened this weekend was his fault. Maybe you could attribute his intensity to making, or you could attribute the team pressing at the plate this weekend to his intensity, but you can't really blame Tony for what happened this weekend. Offense is lethargic. Giants were facing a good team in the Yankees. It happens. And the last time the Giants were swept to open the season was 2012, so actually, that's a good omen. Now, a positive, we mentioned that Giants got 9 hits. Bullpen's pitching all right. We got to see the Giants mariachi band. They did a little pregame performance. They were playing in between innings a couple times. It was a real nice sight. And I love that they're bringing live music into the stadium. The Dodgers are bringing a jazz musician, Tatiana Tate, to play the trumpet part for Edwin Diaz's entrance. I forget the name of the song, but it's a really catchy song, and it became a big hit when he was the closer of the Mets. And so they're bringing in an actual trumpet player to play the trumpet part. She's a jazz musician, and it sounded like the first couple times the trumpet may have been a little flat, could have been a problem with her trumpet, but she's a damn good musician, and I really love bringing in live musicians to play during games. That's what we should be seeing in baseball. I've been advocating for this for a while, and I told Larry Barrett, Tony Vitel's press conference, the Giants should get some sort of band in there. So I'm taking some credit for the mariachi band, and I love the mariachi band. You look at Latin America, you look at the Japanese league, you have a lot of bands and music in the seats, even while the game is going on. Like, we need more of that here in Major League Baseball. Instead of the crap they blare on the PA system, have actual musicians sitting in the stands playing stuff. The Giants having the mariachi band, the Dodgers having Tatiana Tate play the trumpet part for Edwin Diaz's song. That's really cool. We need more of that. We need more teams to do that. Also, we got the Willie Adames bobblehead on Saturday, which I will take out here for the first time. And it's him, it's Adames dumping the Powerade on his teammates. And the Powerade goo is also a bobble. So bobblehead and a bobble Powerade. It's got the metal sprigs in there. And the sponsor, Coca-Cola. Kyle Foster is here and said it perfectly. Tony V is not the problem. People are stupid. He cares. And what's also good is, I was a little worried, oh crap, is Buster gonna have the nerds managed from the front office? And what he said at the opening press conference back in October made me worry that would be the case. I'm not thrilled with Tony's bullpen management. That's really my only criticism. I don't like how many pitching changes he makes. But it does show that Tony's managing his own games. Again, I was perfectly fine with Bader not bunting there, but I do think he should have pinch hit for Patrick Bailey, and that is where Luis Matos being on the roster could have made a big difference. And taking Gerard Encarnacion over Matos, ugh. And I'm going to say this also. Buster's clearly rebuilding. I do believe he's putting more emphasis on the farm system than the team at hand. It should be equal during the season. But Buster should have focused a lot more on improving the pitching staff during the offseason. I said I think the signings of Luis Arias and Harrison Bader were great, but Buster was absolutely awful when it came to the pitching side this offseason. I'm hoping that Tyler Mahle and Adrian Hauser can prove me wrong. But it's just when you're back into the rotation is Mahle, Hauser, and Landon Roop, and when Ryan Walker's your closer and you're relying on guys like Jose Budo and Eric Miller, it just doesn't make you feel good. Kyle says Bailey should have been pinch hit by anyone, though he would have loved to bunt with Bader. The reason I didn't want to bunt with Bader is just because I didn't trust Patrick Bailey. Now the Giants will be headed to San Diego. The Padres lost 2-3 to open the season to a good Tigers team. Padres not as good as the Yankees, and the Padres are having some problems of their own. I mean, obviously, they're on their fourth manager in the last 7 years. They had Jace Tingler for 2 years, then Bob Melvin, then Mike Schilt, and now Craig Stammen, who was pitching in relief in 2022. As we have a visitor here. Hi, Ruma. I think she's interested in the bobblehead. Padres definitely have an attitude problem down there with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis. And their bullpen has taken a real step back. There's a reason I think the Giants, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks are going to be locked in a three-way race for second place in the National League West. I think all three of them are really 500 teams when all is said and done. Giants are going to get off to an ugly start, but they'll get their shit together at some point. And the Padres and Diamondbacks, they're also going to hover around 500. And as I said, it's going to be a three-way race for that second wild card spot. Let's hope the Giants can win a game or two in San Diego. But as again, you're going to San Diego for 3. Then you're playing the Mets for 4 and the Phillies for 3. Oh, not good. Kyle says the Dodgers are winning the division by 10 to 15 games. I think they might win the division by 20 to 30 games, to be honest. Dodgers swept the Diamondbacks over the weekend. Diamondbacks had a 2-0 lead, but the Dodgers came out back late and won their game on Saturday night. Look on the bright side. The Giants are not the only team in the National League West that's 0-3. The Rockies and the Diamondbacks are as well. It would have been nice if the Tigers could have swept the Padres. Landon Roop is going tonight. All right, it's going to be Roop 4th, Hauser 5th. Ed Walker Buehler, the former Dodger, the man who had closed out the 2024 World Series for the Dodgers, he will be going for the Padres. All right. Landon Roop, maybe I'll be proven wrong about the pitching. Who knows? I'm still upset that Buster didn't do more on the pitching side during the offseason. So I talked about ABS, especially with Elliot Ramos using ABS to help work his leadoff walk in the bottom of the ninth. Seeing these, Kyle, I think a 2-inch buffer zone where all the calls are upheld is a very reasonable compromise. You can't be this anal about the strike zone. Now, as Kyle points out, Walker Buehler owns the Giants. Probably will be tough in the offense right now. I'm predicting we lose 2 of 3 in San Diego. I think we'd lose 2 of 3 in San Diego, lose 3 of 4 to the Mets, and lose 2 of 3 to the Phillies, and are 3-10 after April 8th. Going back to ABS, pitches 2 inches off the plate on all directions are hittable. A 2-inch buffer zone is a very reasonable compromise to allow that art, because calling balls and strikes is an art, not a science. People who understand the game know that calling balls and strikes is not supposed to be this anal. Dan Iasogna, there's an interview he did with MLB Network back in 2022. I'm not going to play it because I'd probably get flagged for it. Shows him talking about this. And I hear Anthony Rizzo on the opening of the Netflix game talk, we don't have to make 2-strike adjustments anymore. Yeah, that's not a good thing. We're going to see more home runs, more walks, and more strikeouts. That is not a good thing. Having to protect to hit that pitch a couple inches off the plate leads to better baseball. Jeff Fry has said it. Hitters can't just have a B swing. They have to have a C, D, and E swing as well. A good hitter knows how to hit those pitches. And again, when you're forced to protect the plate, it leads to better baseball. It leads to more fun and exciting baseball. But when we just have the corporate uniform strike zone, everyone tries to hit home runs. We have nothing but walks, home runs, and strikeouts. And that's, to be honest, not very fun. A 2-inch buffer zone on all sides of the plate is a very reasonable compromise. And a lot of people also want to Oh, look at Salvador Perez. Doug Eddings called that same pitch at the knees a ball 3 times, and Salvador Perez won the challenge all 3 times in the Royals Braves opener on Friday. Yeah, because all 3 times, Salvador Perez, who for whatever reason now uses the one knee on the ground stance and for whatever reason snags the ball instead of pitch framing, was snagging at all 3 pitches. And I can attest to this as an umpire. When you take the ball and snag it, you're not just telling the umpire, you're telling everyone in the stadium that the pitch was a ball. I don't know why the nerds think that's an effective way of pitch framing. Actual pitch framing will fool the umpire. But when you take the ball and then snag it, and you do it that vehemently, where you catch it and then bring it all the way to the top of the zone, you're telling everyone in the ballpark that the pitch is a ball. And what I'd want to know is, if you think the pitch is a strike, why are you snagging it? Like, what's going on here? Oh my God. I miss pitch framing, where you would catch it in a certain way, but stick it and make it look like a good pitch. Snagging it like that doesn't even make it look like a good pitch. Everyone sees you moving your glove. And a lot of guys will move it from below the zone to above the zone. Again, why do the nerds think that's an effective way of pitch framing? It makes absolutely no sense. And why are catchers like Salvador Perez, and Salvador Perez, who was brought up under the old way, should know better? It really disappoints me that he's one of the catchers that does this shit. Why do catchers, if they think the pitch is a strike, have to snag it? Kyle says, but it is fun to go to a high school game and complain about a strike zone. I don't know, maybe if you think the pitch is a strike, don't snag it. Or better yet, learn to actually frame it. Rick Dempsey was great at it. Brad Ausmus was great at it. Learn to actually frame the pitch and make it look good. Again, none of this makes any sense to me. But a 2-inch buffer zone on all sides of the plate is a very reasonable temporary compromise while we figure out a long-term solution to ABS. And the thing is, with the technology, ABS replay, it shouldn't be used to be this anal. It should be used to correct egregiously missed calls. And my ideal ABS system is where the umpire can look at his own call on the scoreboard and think, okay, was that a hittable pitch? Okay, maybe that wasn't a hittable pitch. I'll turn it to a ball. But me personally, I think every time a catcher snags it, I don't care if it's right down Broadway. Every time a catcher snags it like that, it should be a ball. As I said, even if it's right down Broadway, ball it. And what I hate too, I'll call some of those pitches unless I'll call some of those pitches strikes if I'm trying to get a game in. But if I'm not trying to get a game in, I'm going to ball that every time as an umpire. It just again, why, like, I don't get it. Why does moving the ball and telling everyone in the stadium that the pitch was a ball, why do people think that's an effective way of pitch framing? And why do catchers think they need to do that if they think the pitch is actually a strike? It makes absolutely no sense to me. And this is what happens when you have corporate hacks in the commissioner's office and in the team's analytical departments running baseball instead of people who actually know the game. All right, I'd like to thank Kyle Foster of Napa Sports News for joining me in the comments. For my boss, Lee Leonard, because the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe is a production of Sports Radio Service. For Vinny Shestoni, my part-time producer who filmed my pregame thoughts on Saturday, I'm Stephen Ruderman. I hope you enjoyed my musings tonight. Have a good night, and I will see you soon. Take care, everybody.